Join me today on GHC Coffee Break. Radonna Brenton from Transitions Hospice will be joining us. Go get your coffee. We'll be right back.
If you drive buzzed, it could cost you around $10,000. You'll face major legal fees, major fines, and steep insurance penalties. You could lose everything. Nothing kills a buzz like getting pulled over for buzz driving, because buzz driving is drunk driving.
Welcome to GHC Coffee Break. I'm very excited about my guest today. Actually, she's a longtime friend and colleague. She has been around for the Human Services Program for a few years, which I'm really excited. She's from Transition Hospice. You were at Transitions as a volunteer coordinator several years ago, Radonna, when we worked together, and you're back at Transitions, which I'm really excited to have to know that you're back at Transitions.
Thank you.
November is Hospice Awareness Month.
It is.
So I'm not going to talk a whole lot. I'm going to kind of let you take over now and tell everybody not only about Transitions, of course, because that's where you work, but about hospice, because I think a lot of people have a misunderstanding of what hospice is.
A lot of folks do have a misconception with hospice. Most every hospice company has a lot of the same entities and that sort of thing. Everybody has a little different niche that may be mandated by corporate or whatever, but we all have to follow the same Medicare guidelines of what we have to do. Our company, we are a privately owned company. If we need something, we just make one phone call and we can get our owner on the phone. He is a veteran. He has owned Transitions Hospice since 2006. He had worked with hospice and had just felt a tug at his heart and thought, you know, this is something I want to do long term. So he opened Transitions Hospice and has been in business since 2006. We service 17 counties from the Georgia-Tennessee line all the way down to Cobb County and those areas as well. So we pretty much can go anywhere within the Northwest Georgia region where folks may need our services. But with all hospice companies, of course, they have nursing. And Medicare requires that the nurse come in at least once every 2 weeks. That's the minimum amount of time that the nurse can come in. They can come in as many times as needed. We offer on-call service 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They can reach our on-call service, but most of the time they end up with everyone's cell phone number, so they always have a way to get a hold of somebody, whether it be through cell phone or on-call. We also offer CNA services where they can come out and help with personal care needs, whether it be bathing, sheet changing, cleaning up the personal area, or just some time for some companionship, helping prepare maybe a light meal, whether it be breakfast or lunch or whatever time frame they're around. We have a social worker as well. Now, sometimes with social worker, people kind of get a little scared and they're thinking, oh, we don't need a social worker. They're just in here to make sure we're taken care of and being kind of nosy. That is so not the case. Not only is the social worker there as support for the patient, but they're also there for support for the family. Lots of times families are having to take leaves from their jobs and that sort of thing. So our social worker can hopefully find if there's any resources that may be available to them, whether if they're a veteran or the spouse of a veteran. Anything through the Area Agency on Aging, we work very closely with them to see if there are any additional resources that may be available for the patient and or the family. So they're there just not only for making sure they're there to lend an ear and to help find resources that may be there for the patient and the family. They can also help with pre-planning, whether it be if there's funds or not funds available, and finding a funeral home or finding burial, and finding resources that may be available to help with that expense if that is a problem for the patient or their family. We also have a chaplain. And a lot of people think when they hear a chaplain that they just, are coming in to read scripture or pray or lend an ear or sing with them. Well, those are some things that can be done by our chaplain. But our chaplain does a lot of little extra things, and she can go from anywhere of helping the patient write notes to leave for family and loved ones. If there's something special that the patient wants to do, whether it be a video or pictures or anything like that, she really tries to find something that they want to do to help leave their legacy for their family, as well as be there for a support system for the patient and the family. Again, she can help with planning needs for services, and it's amazing. She ends up sometimes being called to ask to conduct services as well. Plus, she's also our main one in charge when it comes time for planning our memorial service every year as well.
Yeah, I know you visited my class not too long ago, and my students really did enjoy that, by the way. But I think, backing up just a little bit, to talk to people about what really, there's a lot of services, but what is hospice? Because I think a lot of people figure it's a death sentence. So let's talk a little bit about what is hospice and what does that mean?
Hospice comes in when patients have reached the point where maybe they're one of those patients that are visiting the doctor's office a lot, maybe having a lot of trips to the hospital, maybe they're having a lot of frequent falls, maybe they've got some altered mental status, maybe they have been diagnosed with Alzheimer's or dementia, maybe they've got some respiratory issues going on, maybe they've got some heart failure going on, some kidney issues, or then maybe they've had a diagnosis of a terminal illness. We like to say there's not one specific thing that can get a patient on hospice. Sometimes it's like putting the pieces of a puzzle together. If you have, for say, a loved one who has started maybe having some sudden weight loss, well, weight loss isn't really a diagnosis to get you on hospice services, but they're needing extra care, they're just not up to par, they're tired all the time, you just know something's going on. Well, what we can do is kind of pull all of those doctor's office notes together and look and see what may be going on. Lots of times with frequent visits by the nurse, the CNA, and chaplain and social work services, we have folks that graduate. And
I wanted to mention that because it's not a death sentence, which a lot of people have looked at it.
And a lot of people think, oh no, hospice has come in,
I have 2 weeks to live.
Exactly. And there's a misconception that it used to be within the Medicare guidelines that say that a patient has less than 6 months. Well, I don't know that can really be time, because there's been people that have told they have a certain amount of time and they go quicker or they last a lot longer. So to know the certain day or time, that's not for us to know, but we're there to support the patient and the family. So what we are able to do is be able to come in, kind of look at all their medications, and figure out what's going to work for best for them. Sometimes it's, they think if one blue pill makes me feel good, well, I want to take 2 blue pills because it makes me feel even better. Well, maybe that's what's making, their blood pressure bottom out, or maybe that's what's causing their appetite to be decreased. So if we get in there and do sometimes a little monitoring and see what's really going on, we're able to kind of pull out a lot of medicines. We all know sometimes patients hide them in bathroom cabinets and up above the refrigerator or whatever. So sometimes with just a little extra eye and ear on them, we like to say we're kind of like a doctor's office on wheels. A lot of people think that, we're only there to help monitor pain and keep giving morphine or shots or whatever, and that's so not the case. If we come in and the patient is experiencing maybe some sinus symptoms, a cough, they've got some, junk they're coughing up, we're going to take care of that. All we have to do is get an order from our physician, call and say, hey, look, this is what's going on. I feel like she may be beginning sinus infection, upper respiratory. Yeah, do an antibiotic, and we're going to treat the symptoms. Same thing, lots of times if they have reoccurring UTIs, those can help bring them down, cause fever, it can cause imbalance, make them subject to falls, and just make them just feel really down and bad. So we can treat those UTIs in the home without having to worry about getting a sample, sending it off to the lab. one of my nurses likes to say, if it looks like a duck and quacks like a duck, it's a duck and we can take care of it. So those are some of the things that we're able to do as far as coming in and being just like that doctor's office on wheels. We're a guest in their home, and you know, lots of times once you get in there and build that relationship, you're able to find out sometimes some other things that, well, I really have this going on, or I'm just not feeling real good. And lots of times it's just a matter of companionship, you know, with that daily interaction. You know, you're sitting home alone or with the same people day in and day out, you get a depressed feeling. You get kind of just bombarded with a lot of free time on your hands, thoughts running through your head, and just the matter of that extra attention and companionship makes people feel a lot better.
Yeah, because, you know, and like you said, I actually know of a person who did go on hospice, came off of hospice, lived for several more years, ultimately did have to go back on hospice, did eventually die, but it was, you know, I like the term graduate, and I can even remember, because this was in my early days of learning about hospice myself, and to know that, you know, it wasn't just a matter of, yeah, it's a, you know, you have 2 weeks, a month, or 3 months, whatever, and you're right, nobody really knows.
Exactly.
I've known people that have gone on hospice that have far outlived what the expectation is, and then I've had people who were put on hospice with the expectation of living, you know, still several more months, and have actually died within days. So, you know, to sit there and say it's a death sentence, I feel much more better talking about it in a framework of that care. You know, we've got a few minutes before we have to leave for our next segment, but explain what palliative care is.
Well, with palliative care is you're still able to have in-depth care, but palliative care means you're more seeking a cure and to combat and see what can be done on a curative level, where with hospice, cure is not an option anymore, and we're managing symptoms and just trying to make things comfortable for the patient and the family. Statistically, with hospice care, with a patient, with the hospice care, statistically has proven that 26 days can be added to a person's life with hospice care. And so many times we get patients that may be, or family may be, a little resistant to it, and once we're in there, oh, I wish we had had this sooner. This has been such a big help. And I know from a personal level, we had to use hospice with my dad, and actually used Transitions Hospice. And my grandmother passed away unexpectedly. And here's my dad, the hospice patient. You know, they really reached out to us, cared for us, helped us be able to, until we could make arrangements, you know, for my dad to stagger someone being there when we needed to be with my grandmother or making arrangements. They encompass the whole family. So it's really, you know, a blessing to have that added service, because so many times the fear of the unknown and how to manage. And that's one of the things I like to tell folks. There's a lot of things that hospice does, and I know our company does, that can't be put in a brochure or a flyer or a handbook. Hospices has to be a calling. You just can't. You can't just get up and talk about it. You've got to be able to live it and to feel it, and to be able to reach in and figure out what folks really need. And it's amazing with our team that we have, being in the homes, or when myself or my counterpart meets folks, we're able to kind of figure out, well, and share different needs that may be available, and just add those little extra things. If we know there's an anniversary coming up or a birthday coming up, you know, those little things mean a lot to folks, to be able to be remembered for those that we're taking care of, as well as the caregivers.
Absolutely, and that's kind of where we'll start back up when we come back. So go get your coffee, and we'll be right back with GHC Coffee Break.
Your life is filled with opportunities to show the world you can take charge. It's waking up each day with a mission. It's working each day toward a goal. It's choosing to rise. It's charging forward with a purpose. It's changing the course of your life and taking charge of your future. If you're ready to be a Take Charger, enroll at Georgia Highlands College today.
Thank you for joining me on GHC Coffee Break. Radonna, we left kind of talking about hospice, and it's a much larger scope than people realize. You know, your story about your mom and your dad really, or was it your your grandparents? I'm sorry, your grandparents really has a big impact on me. You had actually taught it in our class as well, that here your granddad was the one on hospice, but your grandma died unexpectedly. She wasn't on hospice, but yet they embraced the whole family and made sure that he was taken care of while you were able to take care of things to get your grandma taken care of.
Exactly. And you know, my mom was the main caregiver for my dad, so here she wanted to be with her mom at the hospital, and you know, it was just a matter, you know, the nurse showed up and she just put things into motion, and you know, Daddy was treated like a king. I mean, you know, he knew things were going on that weren't right, that with Mama not being there, but at the same time, we felt comfortable knowing that he was taken care of because we had established that relationship. We had that confidence in our care team. So it felt really comforting to know here you're struggling with one issue and you know you're just torn, and so it was a great thing. And with hospice, that's some of the things that are able to be offered within that situation. We did not need it, but lots of times families have that type of issue come up, and we can help arrange for what's called respite care, or we can arrange for volunteers to come in.
And that's where I was going to ask you about volunteers. I understand y'all do utilize I know you utilize interns, because I have an intern there who absolutely is loving it, by the way.
Well, good.
She's said that she's really enjoying it, and that she's gotten very connected with the chaplain.
Shelley, she does a great job.
But anyway, volunteers, y'all do utilize volunteers.
We do, and if someone is looking for an opportunity to serve and give back, lots of times it's just a matter of maybe going and visiting with someone, or if maybe the caregiver has a doctor's appointment or just needs that break to go get their hair done, or just to, you know, run some errands. Lots of times we can arrange for a volunteer to be able to come out. Our volunteers do go through training and background checks. So they are, you know, we treat them just as if they were an employee coming into the home. And lots of times caregivers just need that break. I facilitate an Alzheimer's support group, and November is also Alzheimer's Awareness Month, and we host the Alzheimer's support group at Transitions Hospice. We meet the first Wednesday of every month at 1 o'clock. And at our support group, that is one of the things that we give the folks. They get homework. And you're thinking, oh my gosh, here they are, a full-time caregiver, and you're giving somebody homework. But as a caregiver, you are only as good to your loved one as well as you take care of yourself. So if you're not taking care of yourself, you're not going to be very good to the one you're taking care of. So our homework for our attendees is they have to do something for themselves before the next month. Whether it be, you know, just get out of the house for 15 minutes, walk around the yard, you know, go out behind the building and just scream and kick the building door or pound on it just to release some frustration. Or, you know, we've had some that have had it work where they're able to go and take a trip and have a break. So when you're dealing with a loved one that is in declining health, it can be very hard trying to manage the symptoms of that loved one. At the same time, you have your own needs to take care of as well, whether it just be to get a break from it all, just to drive down the road and get a breath of air.
Absolutely, and that's, I don't know where I heard it, and I'm sure I didn't make it up. I'm sure somebody taught it in a workshop, but I'll just never forget, because we talk about this a lot in human services, but this idea of self-care, and analogy I use in class, and like I said, I'm sure I'm stealing it from somebody, so if you're out there, I apologize. But, you know, when you get on the airplane, and they tell you if oxygen and air pressure leaves the plane, you put the oxygen mask on yourself first before you turn and put it on someone else. With the idea that you've got to have air in order to breathe.
Exactly.
That's one of our basic needs.
Exactly.
Breathing to help someone else. Well, I think that's a perfect analogy with our self-care, is in order for us to be helpful and to really be able to facilitate our family member, a client, a patient, their needs, is to making sure we're taking care of ourselves. And that's hard to do. So I think that's perfect homework. And we do. I don't care if it's in a hospice situation or just a family situation. You've got to take care of yourself.
You do, and it's so amazing. So many times people are like, well, I'm the only one, I'm the only one. And
But you don't have to be.
You don't have to be. And this is something that I tell, you know, when folks are talking to me about signing up for hospice services, and when folks are at our Alzheimer's support group, I tell them, I say, look, you're going to have people to say, hey, let me know if there's anything I can do. I said, take them up on it. I said, one or two things are going to happen. They're going to be there to help you, or I promise you they're not going to say that again, and you'll figure out that that they really didn't mean what they say. And, you know, it's just a matter of, you know, having the time just to catch a break. And I had a friend of mine text me this week that, you know, she wasn't able to do something, that she had to go check on her mom, and I told her I understood that sometimes it took a village, and she wrote back, I am the village, it's just me. And I thought, you know, here she is working full-time here, traveling 2 hours away to check on her mom. You know, eventually she's going to have to look.
Something's going to give.
Something is going to give. And that's why with, you know, our office, with our social worker, our chaplain, and our nurses and volunteers, we try to be able to offer a break for those caregivers, whether it be with respite or just a few hours away from those duties. Because ultimately, you know, we feel like as caregivers, we're the only ones who know how to do it and do it right. Yeah. And you know, a lot of times you've just got to learn to release that control a little bit.
Absolutely.
And you know, that's the great thing with our team that we have at Transitions is, you know, we try to monitor and watch those family members. We've had several incidences where it's been the men caring for their wives, and no offense to the gentleman out there, but most of the time it's the wife who handled knowing where the sheets were and when to change, and you know, how to cook and keep the house clean. And lots of times it's just some good education on how to manage, and we're there to help support that, and making sure that, you know, again, the husband's taken care of, as well as with him helping care for the wife, because usually we don't see it that way. It's usually the wife is always the one in charge,
The
and
caregiver,
so
right.
is the caregiver. So you know, with education and just a lot of support and from our team, you know, things make a big difference in being able to help in caring for those folks.
And I think you're exactly right. And I even look at with my parents. My mom has had several strokes. She's 79, and took her to the store yesterday, bank, a couple things she needed running around, prescriptions and stuff. She's having to go to the doctor a good bit now. She's not in a hospice situation, or doesn't need to be at this point. But I hate to ask you, you know, luckily they have free friends, again, that village, and I'm thankful for that village, because I'm like, how could I do it if it was just me?
Exactly.
Even though sometimes we all get to that feeling, I feel like it's just me. And I don't, and I don't mind, but it's so hard for them to ask. But if they already have that network, it's not a matter of them feeling like they're asking or putting someone out.
Exactly. Well, you know, I've heard reference to that, you know, when you have aging parents and you're helping care for them, you have a work, a career, bills to pay, and you also have children to raise, and sometimes folks are even helping raise grandchildren. They're calling them the sandwich generation. So there is that for caregiver burnout, and that's where when folks decline some of our additional services like chaplain and social work, I really, our nurses do a really good job of trying to convince them that, you know, this is just, for sometimes it's just to have an extra ear to listen to and to offer support and suggestive ideas. And that's like at our Alzheimer's support group, we have to go through different training sessions that are put on by the Alzheimer's Association, so that we can help those that do come to support group. And when we're sitting there listening, they're like, well, I just don't know what to do about this situation. Right. And you know, you try to offer, you know, suggestions and gimmicks, and I hate to say gimmicks because a lot of times people say, well, I just hate to lie to them. Well, when you're dealing with Alzheimer's, you're on a planet all by, you know, there's no rhyme or reason there. There are no lies. You have to do what's there to survive for you and your loved one. Mm-hmm. So, you know, we're able to help offer a little bit of tips and, you know, different scenarios so that hopefully they don't feel like, one, they're alone, and two, that they're taking and doing a good job for caring for their loved one.
And I think that's important because it does, you know, you feel guilty if you, because I feel guilty if they have to ask someone else, but you know, I can't. Mom's having to go in to get shots right now for vitamin B because her vitamin B, they don't know why, her iron is low, you know, all these different things. And so, yeah, it is a struggle. So, and I think it really is critical to know that, A, it's okay to ask for help. I always say asking for help, but it's a sign of strength, even though we think it's not.
It's the opposite.
But it truly is.
Well, and you know, one of the things, people sometimes feel like there are not enough resources around. And in Roman Floyd County, we're very blessed to have a strong network. We're a huge medical hub community. Yes. And especially for, we have the Area Agency on Aging that is located here in Rome. I know they've got several billboards up around town advertising, and there is some great resources that are there for folks. So, you know, if people, you know, need that help, they're welcome to call Transitions Hospice. We can help, you know, if we don't know an answer, hopefully we know someone who can help with some different scenarios as well.
And I think that's important. It's about networking and finding the resources, and if you don't know the answer, finding someone who else that does.
Exactly.
All right. Well, Donna, it's been great. We'll be right back. Go get your coffee on GHC Coffee Break.
Open road, here comes the Heffley family.
Whether it's a short trip or a long haul,
estimated time 47 hours.
they will beg.
You're hungry? I'm happy to provide.
They will plead.
Deep fried butter on a stick.
But whatever you do, don't wimp out.
Now you're talking.
Make them buckle up.
He can't hurt.
Remember, safety first. Cheese curls second.
Are you orange?
Welcome back to GHC Coffee Break. Donna, thank you again for joining us. You know, hospice is one of those things I just want to leave everybody with, remembering that it's not a death sentence, that it's a resource for everyone that needs it.
Exactly.
To please make utilization of it. Utilize it if you need it.
Well, and you know, the thing about it is, you know, so many times people have a misconception, and we're there to support the patient as well as the family. Lots of times we're there more for the family than the patient, but you know, we're just there to help serve.
That's a great point, and a great point to leave us with. And until next time on GHC Coffee Break, have a good day.